Kate Morrison stood at the back of the group and tried to make herself even smaller than she already was. The other Marines around her were all tall and strong-looking, with broad shoulders and thick arms. Kate was different. She was only 5 feet tall and weighed barely 110 pounds. Her uniform hung loose on her small frame, and her boots were the smallest size the military made. The other soldiers often forgot she was there. When they talked about missions or training, they looked over her head like she was invisible. Kate had learned to live with this. She had been small her entire life, and people always treated her like she could not do important things, but Kate was on the exploration ship Aurora for a reason. She was not just any Marine. She had special training that most people did not know about. Her file was marked with red letters that meant classified, but nobody bothered to read it. They just saw a tiny woman and assumed she was weak. Today was different from other days. Today, humanity was going to meet aliens for the first time. The Zephyrian Empire had agreed to talk with humans after months of careful messages sent through space. Everyone on the ship was nervous and excited. This meeting could change everything for the human race. Captain Peter Hayes walked back and forth in the shuttle bay. He was the ambassador chosen to speak for all humans. He wore his best uniform and had practiced his speech many times. Behind him stood 12 Marines who would be his protection during the meeting. Kate was number 12, the last one picked. The one nobody really wanted there. The shuttle bay doors opened, and cold space air rushed in before the force fields could stop it. Through the opening, Kate could see the alien ship. It was huge, much bigger than any human ship. The metal was dark red like dried blood, and sharp points stuck out from every surface. It looked like it was made for war, not for talking. "Remember," Captain Hayes said to his team, "we are here to make friends, not enemies. These aliens are much stronger than us. Their ship has weapons that could destroy our entire fleet. We must be polite and respectful." The Marines nodded. Most of them looked worried. They had seen the reports about Zephyrian's strength. The aliens were 8 feet tall with scales like armor and muscles that could crush steel. Humans looked like children next to them. A smaller ship came out from the alien vessel. It was still twice the size of the human shuttle. The metal was so black it seemed to eat light. Strange symbols glowed blue along its sides. The ship landed. In the Aurora's bay with a sound like thunder, steam hissed from the alien ship as it settled. Everyone stepped back except Kate. She stayed where she was and watched. She had learned long ago that running away never helped anything. If something was going to hurt you, it was better to see it coming. The alien ship's door opened downward, like a ramp. More steam poured out, and then the aliens came. The first alien was so tall his head almost touched the shuttle bay ceiling. His skin was covered in dark green scales that looked harder than any armor Kate had ever seen. His arms were as thick as tree trunks, and his hands ended in claws that could probably cut through metal. His yellow eyes looked around the bay like a predator searching for prey. That behind him came 5 more aliens, all just as big and scary. They moved with the confidence of creatures that had never met anything stronger than themselves. Their feet made loud sounds on the metal floor, and Kate could feel the vibrations through her boots. The lead alien stopped in front of Captain Hayes. Even though the captain was tall for a human, the alien looked down at him like an adult looking at a child. The alien's mouth opened, showing teeth like knives. "I am Commander Vexler of the Zephyrian Empire," the alien said. His voice was deep and rough, like rocks grinding together. A small device on his chest translated his words into English. "You are the humans who think they are ready to join the galaxy." Captain Hayes straightened his shoulders and tried to look brave. "I am Captain Peter Hayes, representing the United Human Government. We are honored to meet you and hope we can be friends." Commander Vexler looked at the captain for a long moment. Then his yellow eyes moved over the Marines behind him. When his gaze reached Kate, he stopped and stared. His mouth opened wider, and Kate could hear a sound like laughter, but much more frightening. "These are your warriors?" Commander Vexler asked. His voice was full of disbelief and amusement. "Soft creatures who look like they would break if I breathed on them too hard." The other aliens behind him made the same laughing sound. They looked at the humans like they were looking at pets or toys. Kate felt anger start to burn in her chest, but she kept her face calm. Getting angry now would not help anyone, Captain. Hayes's face turned red, but he kept his voice steady. Our security team is here for protection only. We come in peace and hope to learn from your great empire. Commander Vexler walked closer to the Marines. Each step made the floor shake. Slightly. He looked at each soldier, and Kate could see them trying not to step backward. When he reached her, he stopped and leaned down. His huge head came close to hers, and she could smell something like metal and fire on his breath. This one is especially pathetic, he said, loud enough for everyone to hear. A female so small she could not protect a nest of baby birds. How did such weak creatures ever leave their homeworld? Kate looked up into his yellow eyes and did not blink. She had heard words like this her whole life. Teachers, other soldiers. Even her own family had said she was too small and too weak. But Kate knew something they did not know. Being small was not the same as being weak. Commander, Captain Hayes said quickly, trying to draw attention away from Kate. Perhaps we could begin our discussions. We have much to offer each other. Commander Vexler straightened up but kept looking at Kate. We will see if you have anything worth our time, human. But I doubt creatures this fragile could survive in the real galaxy. You're like glass beings trying to live in a world of stone. The alien ship was even more frightening inside than it looked from the outside. The walls were made of the same dark red metal, and everything was built for creatures much larger than humans. The ceilings were so high that Kate felt like she was walking through a canyon made of metal. Strange lights cast red shadows everywhere, making the humans look like they were covered in blood. Commander Vexler led them through long hallways filled with other aliens. Every Zephyrian they passed stopped to stare at the humans. Some made the grinding laugh sound when they saw how small the visitors were. Others just looked confused, like they could not believe such weak creatures had built spaceships and traveled. Between stars. Kate walked at the back of the group as always. She kept her eyes open and watched everything. The aliens moved differently than humans. They were confident in a way that came from never being afraid. Their muscles moved under their scales like machines made of flesh and bone. Each one looked like they could fight 10 humans at the same time and win easily. The hallway opened into a massive round room that took Kate's breath away. It was an arena like the ones humans used for sports, but much bigger. The floor was flat and covered with sand that looked dark red in the strange light. Around the edges, thousands of seats rose up in circles toward the ceiling. Every seat was filled with aliens who roared and cheered when they saw the humans enter. The sound was so loud it hurt Kate's ears. It was like being inside a thunderstorm made of voices. The aliens in the seats were not just Zephyrians. Kate could see other species too, all of them large and dangerous looking. Some had 4 arms, others had skin like rock, and a few looked like they were made of living metal. In the center of the arena sat a throne made from what looked like the bones of some giant creature. Commander Vexler walked to it and sat down. Even sitting, he was taller than most humans standing up. His yellow eyes looked down at the human group like a king looking at servants. "Welcome to the heart of Zephyrian power," he said. His voice was made louder by devices built into the arena so everyone could hear him. For 10,000 years, important matters have been decided in this place. Here, strength speaks louder than words. Captain Hayes looked around nervously. This was not what he had expected. He had prepared for meetings in quiet rooms with tables and chairs, not for a show in front of thousands of screaming aliens. "Commander," he said, trying to make his voice heard over the crowd, "we had hoped to discuss trade agreements and cultural exchange in a more private setting." Commander Vexler's laugh was like rocks falling down a mountain. "Privacy is for the weak and the afraid. The Zephyrian Empire has nothing to hide. Our strength is our truth, and truth must be seen by all." He stood up from his throne and raised one massive arm. The crowd became silent so quickly that Kate's ears rang from the sudden quiet. When Commander Vexler spoke again, his words reached every corner of the arena. These humans come to us claiming they deserve to be treated as equals, he announced. They want to trade with us and share our knowledge. But look at them, they are soft and small and weak. They could not survive one day in our empire. The crowd roared its agreement. Kate could see aliens pointing at the humans and making gestures that probably meant the same thing in any language. The message was clear. Humans were not welcome here. Captain Hayes stepped forward. Commander, our technology and knowledge could benefit both our peoples. We may not be as physically strong as you, but we have other abilities that could be valuable. Abilities? Commander Vexler's voice dripped with scorn. What abilities could such pathetic creatures possess? Can you crush stone with your bare hands? Can you tear metal like paper? Can you fight and kill and survive when everything wants to destroy you? The captain opened his mouth to answer, but Commander Vexler continued before he could speak. No. You cannot do any of these things. You are prey animals that somehow learn to build machines. But machines cannot give you courage. Machines cannot give you strength. Machines cannot make you worthy of respect. Kate felt the anger burning hotter in her chest. She had heard this kind of talk before, but never on such a large scale. Every alien in the arena was agreeing that humans were worthless because they were not as big and strong as other species. Commander Vexler walked to the edge of his platform and looked down at the humans. There is only one way to prove your worth in the galaxy: combat, face our champion in single battle. If you win, we will consider you equals and negotiate with you. If you lose, you will leave our space forever and never return. The arena erupted in cheers and roars. The aliens loved this idea. Kate could see them becoming excited at the thought of watching a human die for their entertainment. Captain Hayes looked pale. Commander, surely there must be another way. We prefer to solve problems through discussion and compromise. Then you have already failed, Commander Vexler said coldly. The galaxy is not a place for creatures who cannot fight for what they want. Choose your strongest warrior, or admit you are too cowardly to deserve our attention. Kate looked at her fellow Marines. They were all good soldiers, but she could see the fear in their eyes. The biggest and strongest human in their group was Sergeant Jim Parker. He was 6 feet tall and weighed 200 pounds of muscle. By human standards, he was incredibly strong. But next to these aliens, he looked like a child. The silence stretched on. Kate could feel the moment slipping away. Soon Captain Hayes would have to refuse the challenge, and humanity's first contact with aliens would end in humiliation and failure. Humans would be marked as cowards throughout the galaxy, and no other species would ever take them seriously. That was when Kate Morrison stepped forward. I accept the challenge, she said. Her voice was not loud, but in the sudden quiet of the arena, everyone heard her. The silence lasted for several seconds as thousands of alien minds tried to process what they had just heard. Then the laughter began. It started with just a few aliens chuckling, then spread like fire through the crowd. Soon, the entire arena was filled with the sound of alien laughter. Some were laughing so hard they fell out of their seats. Others were pointing at Kate and making sounds that could only mean they thought she had lost her mind. Commander Vexler stared at her with something that might have been amazement. The smallest and weakest of your warriors volunteers to die? This is either the greatest courage I have ever seen or the greatest foolishness. Kate looked up at him without blinking. There's only one way to find out which one it is. The laughter grew even louder. Kate could hear Captain Hayes trying to say something behind her, probably trying to stop her from doing this, but she did not turn around. She had made her choice, and there was no going back now. Commander Vexler raised his arm again, and the crowd became quiet. Very well, tiny human. You will face Gorath the Bone Crusher, champion of 100 worlds. He has never been defeated in combat. He has killed creatures 10 times your size with his bare hands. Kate nodded. When do we start? The arena floor began to shake, and Kate could hear machinery moving somewhere below the sand. A section of the floor in the center started to rise up like a platform. Steam hissed from the edges, and red lights flashed as whatever was coming up got closer to the surface. Kate stood perfectly still and watched. Around her, the alien crowd was getting more excited by the second. They were chanting something in their own language, and the sound was like drums beating before a war. She could feel the vibrations through the floor and up into her bones. Captain Hayes grabbed her shoulder and turned her around. His face was white with fear and anger. "Kate, what are you doing? This is suicide. That thing will kill you in seconds." Kate looked at him calmly. "Maybe it will, Captain, but maybe it won't. Either way, humanity gets an answer today." "There has to be another way," he said desperately. "We can refuse the challenge and leave. We can come back later with more ships and soldiers." Kate shook her head. "No, we can't. If we run now, they will never respect us. Every alien species in the galaxy will hear that humans are cowards who run when challenged. We will never get another chance like this." Before Captain Hayes could argue more, the platform reached the surface level. What stepped off of it made every human in the arena take a step backward. Except Kate. Gorth the Bone Crusher was not just big. He was enormous. He stood almost 10 feet tall and was built like a mountain of muscle covered in scales. His arms were thicker than Kate's entire body, and his legs looked like tree trunks. Scars covered his hide from hundreds of battles, each one telling the story of something that had tried to kill him and failed. His head was massive, with a jaw that could probably bite a human in half. His teeth were like knives, yellow and sharp and stained with the blood of previous victims. His eyes were pure black, with no emotion in them except the joy of violence, but it was his hands that made Kate's fellow Marines curse under their breath. His fingers ended in claws that were as long as knives and looked just as sharp. The tips had been sharpened to points that could probably punch through metal. Dark stains on the claws suggested they had been used to kill many things. Gorth looked around the arena and roared. The sound was so loud and deep that Kate felt it in her chest like a physical blow. The alien crowd roared back, screaming his name and calling for human blood. The champion raised his arms above his head, and Kate could see muscles moving under. His scales like cables made of steel. He looked down at the humans and focused on Kate. His black eyes studied her like she was an interesting insect he was about to step on. Then he laughed, and the sound was like rocks grinding together in a landslide. "This is the warrior the mammals send to face me?" he asked in a voice like thunder. "I have killed creatures larger than this one by accident. I have stepped on things more dangerous than this tiny female." The crowd loved this. Their cheering became so loud that Kate had trouble hearing her own thoughts. Gorth walked toward her with slow, confident steps. Each footstep left a print in the sand that was deeper than Kate's whole foot. Kate began to remove her uniform jacket. Underneath, she wore a simple green tank top that showed her small arms and shoulders. Compared to Gorth's massive frame, she looked like a child playing dress-up in adult clothes. "Kate, please," Captain Hayes said one more time. "This is madness." Kate folded her jacket carefully and handed it to him. "Captain, do you remember what my file says about my training?" Hayes frowned. "Your file is classified above my level. I only know you have special combat experience." Kate smiled for the first time since entering the arena. "Then trust me, and watch carefully. You're about to learn something important about humans." She walked toward the center of the arena where Gorth was waiting. With each step, the size difference became more obvious. When she finally stopped about 10 feet away from him, the top of her head barely reached his waist. Gorth looked down at her and shook his massive head. "I will make this quick, little creature. You have courage, even if you have nothing else. I will try to kill you quickly so you do not suffer long." Kate cracked her knuckles, a sound that was lost in the noise of the crowd. "That's very kind of you, Gorth, but I have a different idea." She settled into a fighting stance that looked relaxed and casual. Her feet were shoulder-width apart, her knees slightly bent, her hands loose at her sides. To anyone watching, she looked like she was getting ready to have a conversation, not a fight to the death. Gorth laughed again. "You stand like you are waiting for someone to serve you food. Do you even know how to fight, tiny mammal?" Kate's smile became wider. "I know a few things about fighting. My teachers were very good at their jobs." The truth was that Kate Morrison knew more about fighting than almost any human alive. Her training had been done by people whose names were hidden in files so secret that most governments did not know they existed. She had learned things about combat that were not taught in any military school or martial arts academy. She had been taught how to kill with her bare hands in ways that were so efficient they seemed like magic. She had learned about anatomy and physics and leverage in ways that most doctors and scientists never would. She knew exactly where to hit any living creature to cause the most damage with the least effort, but most importantly, she had been taught to use her size as a weapon instead of a weakness. While other fighters tried to be bigger and stronger, Kate had learned to be faster and more precise. She was like a scalpel in a world of hammers, and scalpels could cut through things that hammers could not even touch. Goreth stretched his arms and cracked his neck. The sounds were like tree branches breaking. "Are you ready to die, little human?" Kate nodded. "Whenever you are ready, big guy." Goreth roared one more time and charged at her with surprising speed for something so massive. His claws were extended, ready to tear her apart. His mouth was open, showing all those knife-like teeth. He came at her like an avalanche of muscle and fury and death. Kate did not move until the very last second. When she did move, it was with a speed and grace that no one in the arena had expected. She was not there anymore when Goreth's claws swept through the space where she had been standing. Instead, she was beside him, moving like water around a rock. The alien crowd became quiet as they tried to understand what they were seeing. This was not how fights usually went. Champions did not miss their first attacks. Tiny opponents did not move like ghosts. Goreth stumbled as his charge carried him past where Kate had been. He spun around with impressive quickness for his size, confusion and anger mixing in his black eyes. He had never fought anything that moved like this human did. Goreth spun around to face Kate again, but she was already moving. She circled him like a shark swimming around its prey, staying just out of reach of his massive claws. Her movements were smooth and controlled, never wasting energy or taking unnecessary risks. The alien champion swiped at her with his right hand, claws whistling through the air fast enough to cut steel. Kate ducked under the attack so smoothly it looked like she had known it was coming before Goreth had even started to move. The crowd gasped as the claws passed over her head by inches. Goreth tried again with his left hand, this time aiming lower. Kate twisted her body and let the claws pass by her side. She was so close to them that they cut through the air next to her skin, but they never touched her. It was like watching someone dance with death itself. The champion roared in frustration and tried to grab her with both hands at once. Kate dropped to one knee and slid between his legs, coming up behind him before he could react. The arena crowd was becoming restless, confused by what they were seeing. This was not how their champion usually fought. "Stand still and die like you are supposed to," Goreth snarled, spinning to face her again. Kate shook her head. "Sorry, but I have other plans." What happened next showed everyone in the arena something they had never seen before. Goreth, angry and embarrassed, abandoned any strategy and simply tried to smash Kate with his raw power. He brought both fists down toward her head with enough force to crush stone. Kate stepped to the side and let his fists crash into the arena floor. The impact was so powerful that cracks spread out from where his hands hit. Sand jumped into the air, and the sound echoed through the arena like a bomb exploding. But Kate was not where his fists landed. She was right next to Goreth, and for the first time in the fight, she was close enough to touch him. This was the moment everything changed. Kate had been studying Goreth from the second he appeared on the platform. While everyone else was looking at his size and strength, she had been analyzing his anatomy. She could see how his muscles attached to his bones, how his joints moved, where his nerves ran under his scales. Most importantly, she could see his spine. All creatures with backbones had the same basic weakness, no matter how big or strong they were. The spine was like a chain, and chains were only as strong as their weakest link. Kate had learned exactly where that weak link was located in creatures like Goreth. While he was pulling his fists out of the cracked floor, Kate moved behind him. Her small fist, backed by years of training and perfect knowledge of anatomy, shot out toward a specific spot on Gorth's back. She hit him at the exact point where two vertebrae met, at the exact angle needed to separate them, with exactly the right amount of force. Her punch looked like nothing special to the watching crowd. She was so small that her fist seemed to barely touch the massive champion, but the sound that followed filled the arena with shocked silence. Crack. It was sharp and clear and final. Everyone in the arena knew what that sound meant, even if they could not believe what they were hearing. It was the sound of bone breaking, of a spine separating, of a champion becoming helpless in a single instant. Gorth's roar of anger became a scream of pain and terror. His massive body, which had been moving with such power and confidence, suddenly collapsed. His legs stopped working and he crashed to the arena floor like a falling tree. The Bone Crusher, terror of 100 worlds, killer of countless enemies, lay in the sand, unable to move anything below his neck. His black eyes were wide with shock and disbelief. He tried to get up, but his legs would not obey his commands. He tried to move his arms, but they hung useless at his sides. Kate stood over him, not even breathing hard from the fight. She looked down at the paralyzed champion with something that might have been pity in her eyes. "I'm sorry this had to happen," she said quietly. But you would not have listened to words. The arena was completely silent. Thousands of aliens stared in disbelief at what they had just witnessed. Their greatest champion, the creature they thought was invincible, had been defeated by something smaller than his foot. Kate looked up at Commander Vexter, who was standing frozen on his platform. His yellow eyes were wide with shock, and his mouth hung open like he could not process what he had seen. "We humans have a saying," Kate called out, her voice carrying clearly in the stunned silence. "It is not the size of the dog in the fight that matters. It is the size of the fight in the dog." She walked closer to the platform where the commander stood. "We may be smaller than you, and we may not have scales or claws or great physical strength, but we have something else. We have knowledge and patience and the ability to find weakness in any enemy, no matter how strong they appear to be." Kate gestured toward the fallen champion. "Gorth was defeated not by strength, but by precision. I did not need to be stronger than him. I only needed to know exactly where to hit him and exactly how hard to hit him. This is what humans bring to the galaxy, not brute force, but intelligence applied with deadly accuracy." The crowd began to murmur. Some aliens looked angry, others looked confused, but many looked impressed despite themselves. They had never seen anything like this tiny creature, who could disable their greatest warrior with a single blow. Commander Vexter slowly descended from his platform. His massive form moved carefully, like he was seeing Kate for the first time. When he reached the arena floor, he walked over to where his champion lay helpless. "How?" he asked simply. Kate knelt next to Gorth and began checking his condition. With quick professional movements. All creatures with spines have the same basic design. If you know where to hit and how to hit, size does not matter. What you call weakness, we call efficiency. She looked up at the commander. "Your champion will live, but he will never walk again. I am sorry for that, but he gave me no choice. In human culture, we try to disable our enemies rather than kill them when possible." Commander Vexter stared at her with something that might have been the beginning of respect. "You could have killed him?" Kate nodded. "Easily. But dead enemies cannot become friends later. Living enemies sometimes can." She stood up and faced the commander directly. "Now, are you ready to negotiate with humanity as equals, or do you need more proof of what we can do?" The news of what happened in the arena spread through the Zephyrian Empire faster than light itself. Within hours, every alien in their territory had heard about the tiny human female who had broken their greatest champion with a single punch. Some did not believe the reports at first, thinking they were jokes or lies, but the recording devices in the arena had captured everything. And soon the footage was being watched on 1,000 different worlds. Commander Vexter sat in his private chambers and watched the recording for the 20th time. Each time he saw Kate's small fist strike Gorth's spine, he understood a little more about what humans truly were. They were not the weak prey animals he had first thought. They were something much more dangerous. Predators who looked like Prey. Kate had been moved to guest quarters that were more appropriate for human size. The room was still too big for her, but at least she could reach the furniture and controls. She sat by the window looking out at the stars and thinking about what would happen next. A soft chime indicated someone was at her door. When it opened, Commander Vexler entered. Without his armor and weapons, he looked less threatening but still impressively large. He moved carefully like he was approaching a dangerous animal that might attack if startled. "I have come to apologize," he said, his voice much quieter than it had been in the arena. Kate turned from the window. "You have nothing to apologize for, Commander. You were protecting your people by testing ours. That is what good leaders do." Vexler sat down in a chair that creaked under his weight. "I called you weak. I said your species was pathetic and would not survive in the galaxy. I was wrong about everything." Kate smiled. "You were not completely wrong. We are smaller and weaker than most species we have met so far, but you made the same mistake that many others have made. You assume that physical strength is the only kind of strength that matters." The commander leaned forward. "Explain to me how you did what you did." "Our doctors say Gorith's spine was severed so cleanly it could have been done with a surgical laser, but you used only your hand." Kate stood up and walked to a table where she had placed some drawing materials. She had been expecting this question and had prepared an answer that would be easy to understand. "All living things are machines made of organic parts," she began, drawing a simple diagram. "Muscles move bones, nerves carry signals, joints allow movement. No matter how big or strong the machine is, it still follows the same basic rules." She drew a spine with vertebrae clearly marked. "Every creature with a backbone has weak points where the bones connect. If you hit these points at exactly the right angle with exactly the right force, the connections will break. Size does not protect against this because the weak points are not made stronger by having bigger muscles." Vexler studied the drawing. "But how did you know exactly where to hit and how hard?" Kate set down her drawing tool. "Training. Lots and lots of training. My instructors taught me anatomy, physics, leverage, and precision. They showed me how to analyze any opponent and find their weaknesses. Most importantly, they taught me patience, how to wait for the perfect moment to strike." The commander was quiet for several minutes, processing what she had told him. Finally, he spoke again. "Your people are warriors after all, but you are warriors of the mind rather than the body." Kate nodded. "Humans learned long ago that the strongest muscle is the brain. We may not be able to crush steel with our hands, but we can figure out exactly where to hit steel to make it shatter. We cannot run as fast as some animals, but we can build machines that run faster than anything alive." A communication device on Vexler's belt chimed. He activated it and listened to a report in his own language. When he was finished, he looked at Kate with an expression she could not read. "The other members of the Empire have heard about what happened today," he said. "Many are demanding to know more about humans. Some are afraid. Others are excited. A few are asking if they can recruit human warriors for their own armies." Kate laughed. "I hope you told them we are not for hire." Vexler's mouth opened in what might have been a smile. "I told them that humans are now to be treated as equals and potential allies. Anyone who wishes to test human strength personally is welcome to try, but they should be prepared for the consequences." Over the next several days, Kate and Captain Hayes worked with Commander Vexler to establish the first treaties between humanity and the Zephyrian Empire. The negotiations went much more smoothly than anyone had expected. Word of Kate's victory had given the aliens a new respect for human capabilities. The trade agreements they signed would allow human colonies to be established in Zephyrian space under the protection of the Empire. In return, humans would share their knowledge of precision engineering, advanced computing, and tactical analysis. It was exactly the kind of partnership Captain Hayes had hoped for when the mission began. On their last day aboard the alien ship, Kate was invited to visit Gorith in the medical bay. The former champion was lying in a bed designed for his massive frame, but he looked much smaller now than he had in the arena. His eyes were no longer black with rage but showed intelligence and curiosity. "I wanted to thank you," he said when he saw her. Kate was surprised. Thank me for what? Gorth managed something that might have been a smile. For showing me that strength comes in many forms. I spent my entire life believing that bigger and stronger always meant better. You taught me that wisdom and skill can defeat raw power. It is a lesson I needed to learn. Kate sat down next to his bed. I'm sorry about your spine. If there had been another way to stop the fight without killing you, I would have chosen it. The former champion shook his massive head. Do not apologize. I challenged you to mortal combat, and you had every right to kill me. Instead, you chose to spare my life even though it meant I would be crippled. That shows a kind of strength I never knew existed. Kate reached out and touched his huge hand. Maybe someday our doctors can help fix your spine. Human medicine is very good at repairing things that seem impossible to heal. Gorth's eyes brightened with something that might have been hope. You would do that for an enemy who tried to kill you? Kate smiled. You are not my enemy anymore. Today you are just someone who needs help. When the time came for the humans to leave, thousands of aliens gathered in the docking bay to watch them go. It was very different from their arrival. Instead of hostile stares and mocking laughter, Kate could see respect and curiosity in the alien faces. Commander, Vexler presented Kate with a weapon that had belonged to one of their greatest ancient warriors. It was a curved blade made from metal that gleamed like silver, but was harder than any material humans had ever seen. This is for the warrior who taught us that appearances can be deceiving, he said formally. May it serve you well when you face other enemies who underestimate human strength. Kate accepted the blade with proper ceremony. I will carry it with honor and remember the lesson we both learned today. As the human shuttle prepared to leave, Captain Hayes sat next to Kate and shook his head in amazement. When this mission started, I thought we would be lucky to establish basic trade relations. Instead, we have gained powerful allies and opened up an entire section of the galaxy for human expansion. Kate looked out the window at the alien fleet that was escorting them to the edge of Zephyrian space. The ships that had once seemed threatening now felt protective, like guards making sure the humans reached safety. The galaxy is going to be very different now, she said quietly. Other species will hear about what happened here. Some will want to test us like the Zephyrians did. Others will try to avoid us entirely. But none of them will make the mistake of thinking humans are weak again. Captain Hayes nodded. Are you ready for that kind of attention? You are going to be famous across 100 worlds. Kate smiled and touched the alien blade at her side. I never wanted to be famous, Captain. I just wanted to prove that being small does not mean being helpless. If other aliens want to learn that lesson the hard way, I will be happy to teach them. The shuttle cleared the alien fleet and jumped to faster-than-light speed, carrying the news of humanity's first victory in galactic politics back to Earth. Behind them, the Zephyrian Empire began the process of adjusting to a new reality, where the smallest warriors could be the most dangerous dot in the months that followed. Kate Morrison became a legend not just among humans but across the known galaxy. The story of the tiny human who broke the bone crusher spread to every species in contact with the Zephyrian Empire. Some stories made her 10 feet tall, others said she could kill with a glance, but all of them carried the same message. Humans were not to be underestimated. Kate herself returned to her duties aboard the Aurora, but now she was no longer the forgotten Marine standing at the back of the group. She was the warrior who had changed humanity's place in the galaxy with a single perfectly placed punch. And whenever new aliens met humans for the first time, they were always told the same. Warning, be careful around the small ones because they might be the most dangerous of all.